World Cup 2014, you've been amazing. And it ain't finished here, of course. Mark O'Hare, my colleague here at Sporting Bet HQ, another Sporting Bet World Cup video here. We're looking at the 4 quarter-finals, Mark. You had a great time in our last 2 videos, last 16 videos. You couldn't have put any better, really, how things worked.
Greece failed, didn't they?
Greece failed. That was it. But we've got 4 games to look at here, 4 quarter-finals beginning at Friday, 5 p.m. Get out of the office in time. France are up against Germany. France 2-1 to win this fixture, 9-4 the draw. Germany 13-10 to win in 90 minutes. Mark, it's a European heavyweight clash. Who are you backing?
Well, I said before Germany played Algeria that we shouldn't judge them on one performance against Portugal, because since then they've pretty much been pretty naff.
Yeah.
They were against Algeria anyway, and they were very vulnerable defensively in that game. France, on the other hand, I've been with them from the start, been with them outright. Unconvinced against Nigeria, as they have done probably since that Switzerland performance as well. But I do like Didier Deschamps. I like what he's got at that team. I like his tactical changes. Of course, Griezmann coming off for Giroud to change their game against Nigeria. And you look at their record at the moment, they're now unbeaten in 9. They've won 7 of those, kept 7 clean sheets in that spell, 11 clean sheets in the last 15 games as well. They're tight defensively, but they're good going forward. Their last 10 wins have been by at least 2 goal margin as well. 7 of the last 8 wins have been to 0. So good reasons for backing France there, front and back. 2-1, I definitely didn't expect them to be at that big a price. I tried to price this game up in my head during the Germany-Algeria match, and certainly wasn't 2-1 France, so that's certainly under consideration. Germany, of course, very vulnerable against Algeria, taken to extra time in that match, and since 2002, 10 teams have progressed through extra time or penalties, and then gone on to be, well, 9 of the 10 eliminated in their next game. Germans, of course, do deserve respect. They've won 25 games of their last 29 competitive matches since the last World Cup, only 1 defeat since August 2012. They will have fans at odds against quotes, but you know, they just lack conviction for me, especially defensively. Hummels should return for this game. Lahm should probably shift back to right back, but Javides down the left is going to be exploited again. France have only lost 2 of the last 17 games in knockout tournaments, which is quite surprising when you look at it on the face of it. A couple of disasters that they've had recently in big tournaments, but 2-1 definitely does interest me. One bet I do like the look of, though, is the half-time draw or the 0-0 half-time score at 13-10. France have leaked just 1 goal in the last 20 games before half-time, and none in the last 12. Germany have scored 13 of the last 15 goals after half-time and not leaked before half-time in their last 9. The last, well, 6 of the last 8 round of 16 games were 0-0 at half-time. It's 13-10 the 0-0 half-time. You can have a bit of safety with France, 23-20 in the draw no bet market, 11-10 to qualify, but why not? Let's go for France at 2-1 to win inside 90 minutes. I think they're definitely capable of it.
Yeah, for me they're definitely the better price here in terms of value. France at 2-1. Mark's keen on that. It should be a fantastic game on Friday afternoon. Absolutely buzzing for that. Friday evening is the hosts, the unconvincing hosts, Brazil, 4-5 to beat Colombia, who've been, you know, so convincing. The complete opposite. 5-2 the draw. 17-5 Colombia, who wowed us all on Saturday night. Brazil got through that war of attrition against Chile, and a game we'll never forget as long as we breathe oxygen. Mark, are you tempted with a 4-5 in Brazil?
To be honest, I thought they'd be shorter.
Yeah.
I think everyone's getting on Brazil's backs at the moment, and it's coming to a point where how far do you go with this criticism? Because they're not that bad a team.
Yeah.
They're clearly not clear tournament favourites, and suddenly become this awful team after 4 games. Which, you know, at the end of the day, they're in the World Cup quarter-finals on their home pitch. They've not lost a competitive game since 1975, as we've said. At home, they've won 42 and drawn 19 of those now. Yeah, I thought they'd be shorter than 4-5. They've won 11 of an unbeaten run of 13 now. 7 of those 11 wins were to 0. They've won 17 of the last 20 games. Of course, a lot of those are friendlies as well. They've not dazzled us as we expected. Just 1 clean sheet in their 4 games, and they've only scored 2 or more goals in half of those games as well. But Colombia are a completely different animal to Chile. Brazil have won 8, drawn 2, lost 1 of the last 11 World Cup games against South American opposition. They don't seem to have that kind of mind complex which perhaps Chile would have had coming into the game against Brazil, and Colombia might have too. But I think it's going to be mighty tough for Colombia, but they are capable of at least taking this game to extra time. They're more robust defensively. They've got the X factor going forward, which Chile have as well. They won't give you as many chances as Chile will. The last 4 meetings, interestingly, between these two teams have been drawn. The draw's 5-2. 3 of those games ended 0-0. That's 9-1. A big price when you consider what 3 of the 8 round of 16 ties were 0-0 after 90 minutes. But Colombia double chance is the bet for me here at 10-11. As I said, I think they're more robust than Chile. I think they can take this game to extra time. I think that stat again's got to be brought out about the extra time. Brazil, of course, went to extra time against Chile as well. Just the one of the last 10 teams that have taken to extra time or penalties progressed in their next game. Colombia's side unbeaten in 11, winning 7 of those. They've only lost 3 of 24 games under Peckerman, winning 17, and the 3 games they lost were when they failed to score. They will get chances against Brazil. We've seen that in the Brazil's first 4 games. I think they can score. They've scored at least 2 in the last 7 actually, and they've won 18 of the last 20 when they've scored a goal. So I think Colombia double chance, a shade under even money for me as a bet here.
Sure, another fantastic game. Friday night, that is. Saturday, 5 p.m, Argentina against Belgium, a repeat of the 1986 World Cup semi-finals. Maradona's a fantastic goal that day, just as good as the goal against England he scored the previous weekend. Mark 21-20 Argentina, unconvincing you'd have to say in this tournament. 9-4 the draw. Belgium, their first appearance since 1986 at this stage of the competition, 13-5 to win this. Is this the game Argentina click?
It's a big question to ask. They arrived in this blaze of glory, didn't they? Everyone was getting behind Argentina, topping their qualifying group in such awful, brilliant fashion, and they were so awful against Switzerland. Absolutely awful, pedestrian, devoid of movement. They just look so vulnerable defensively as well. Saying that though, they've only lost 1 in 23 games, and that's when they had an experimental side out in a dead rubber against Uruguay. They've won 17 and drawn 8 of the last 25 games when Messi has played, and he's the man here really. He's dragged them through to this stage. I think he's probably reaffirmed his place as the best player in the world. The attack just isn't firing though, apart from him. Just 6 goals scored against Switzerland, Iran, Nigeria and Bosnia. They scored 35 in 16 qualifiers. You know, it's bizarre. And at the same time, they've kept 7 clean sheets in 9 now, which is again just bizarre when you consider how insecure they've looked defensively. I have to admit, I thought Argentina would be odds on to win this game. So 21-20, therefore, is a bet in my eyes. They've only won 13 of the last 24 competitive games, but there's also that stat I brought up in the last video, which remains. You know, they've won 1 knockout game inside 90 minutes at the World Cup since 1990. It's poor, and they seem to have a bit of a mental block when they reach these knockout stages. But they have won 10 of their last 14 against European teams. They've won 9 of 11 against European teams when playing in South America. And Belgium themselves, they found goals hard to come by. Failed to score against the US. Only scored 4 in probably the weakest group of all 8. And they will get opportunities against this Argentina side. 6 of their last 8 have seen both teams to score in the Argentina stakes, and it's 9-10 for a repeat, which is a real interest for me. Belgium won 10 of the last 12 competitive games. They're well drilled defensively. They won't give so much away. The only goal they've conceded has actually been a penalty. So under 2.5 goals is 3.5. 3-5, which I think is probably fair and a half. The 0-0 halftime score though is 5-4, which is something that really does interest me. It's banked in all 4 Belgium games. It's banked in Argentina's game against Switzerland too. But for me, it's 21-20 on Argentina to win this game. I think they should be shorter in odds on.
Interesting stuff. Let's move on to the final game of the quarter-finals. What weekend it's going to be. Holland, Netherlands against Costa Rica, 9-20 the Netherlands, 16-5 the draw. Costa Rica, the surprise package of the tournament, Mark, at 6-1. Does their dream end here like I think we all expected to?
Yeah, I think it does. It's a bit of a fairy tale. 151 to reach the quarter-finals. Incredible stuff. Keylor Navas, of course, writing his name into international notebooks all around the world as an outstanding keeper he has been with Levante. But I think you can make allowances for the first 3 results, and then of course they play Greece, who they've done well to progress from that game. But for me, I think the fairy tale is going to end and could end quite abruptly. At least I think it should do. I mean, I am a romantic and I do love backing an underdog, but I think Costa Rica, they're not as good as people are starting to make out. The Netherlands are much better than probably we thought at the start of the tournament. Costa Rica arrived having lost 4 of their 6 games at the World Cup. They've now only won 3 from 10 still. They've only scored 2 or more goals in 2 of 10. They've only kept 3 clean sheets in 17. However, saying that, they've only conceded 2 or more goals. Well, they haven't conceded 2 or more goals in any of those 17 games. So they are missing 2 key defenders though. Roy Miller's now injured from what we hear this morning. Oscar Duarte suspended. Only conceded 1 goal from open play in this tournament before this game. And I looked at the half-time draw market, stuff like draw Netherlands in the double result, the half-time 0-0, the second half high scoring. Those absences mean that I'll look elsewhere because the Dutch are so dangerous going forward. 10 of their last 11 goals have come after half-time, but I don't want to oppose, the likes of Robben or Van Persie running riot in this game. They've won 22 of the last 27 competitive games since the World Cup final. 17 of those 22 wins have been by at least 2 goals. Netherlands -1 here is 5-4. I think that's where I'm going to go in this game. They've lost 1 of the last 25 games. That was away in France in a friendly. They've scored in all of the last, they've only failed to score in 1 of the last 27 competitive games. They've scored 4 or more goals in 4 of their 10 qualifiers. They've won 9, they've drawn 1 against CONCACAF teams since 1994. All the stats are in the Netherlands' favour here. I tried to have a look at the last sort of 3-4 World Cups at the quarter-final stage, see it pit 2 teams of similar standards as these two. I found out Spain, Paraguay, Italy, Ukraine, Brazil, Denmark. Only Italy won by 2 or more goals in those 3 games. But all sense seems to say that the Netherlands will win this fairly comfortably. They should. -1 at 5-4, I think.
And of course, they beat Brazil in the quarterfinals 4 years ago.
Yeah. They've got pedigree. And Louis van Gaal, of course.
Of course, who's Man United fans licking their lips at the moment. He's done his reputation an immense amount of good over the last 3-4 weeks. Very, very quickly, Mark, your 4 semi-finalists, please.
Looking at your paper there, I've got France. I think Brazil in extra time, but I'm going to have to be with Colombia. So France, Colombia, Argentina, and the Netherlands.
Bring it on.